Welcome to AP Biology. We are working through Hardy-Weinberg questions today. After graduation, you and 19 of your closest friends, let's say 10 males and 10 females, charter a plane and go on a round-the-world tour. You all crash land, oh no, but safely, on a deserted island. No one finds you and you start a new population totally isolated from the rest of the world. Two of your friends carry or are heterozygous for the recessive cystic fibrosis allele, little c. So I'm going to say, for my knowns, I'm going to say big C equals the normal gene or the wild type gene, and little c, I'm going to call that the cystic fibrosis gene. So assuming that the frequency of this allele does not change as the population grows, what will be the incidence of cystic fibrosis on your island? So the only other thing I know is that I have 20 people altogether. 20 people, and 2 of the people are big C, little c. Okay, so this is actually quite a bit different from the other problems because usually I know what the incidence of little c is, and it's actually 0 here. But I know that I do have some heterozygous folks, so I can't start this problem the way I usually do. It's just a tiny population. That's why you don't have any little c, given the heterozygous folks. Okay, so here's what I know. I know I have 2 people that are big C, little c. So that means if I'm looking at the allele little c, the recessive allele Q, I know there's, out of the whole population, I know there's 2, right? Because most people are this, right? Like 18 of you. But 2 of you are this, which means I have 2 little c's out of a total of how many alleles? Well, if I have 20 people, total, everybody has 2 alleles, so that means there are 40 total alleles. So 2 out of 40 are actually the recessive allele. 2 divided by 40 equals, 0.05. So now I have the frequency of the Q allele in the population. I know that P plus Q is 1, so that means, if I do 1 minus 0.05, I get, that equals 1, so I know that P has to equal 0.95. All right, so I have Q and I have P. So I want to know how frequent little c is going to be. So let's say your population continues for 1,000 years and then someone discovers your island. What would be Q squared, right? So if Q is 0.05, then Q squared equals, what's 0.05 squared? It's 0.003, I'm going to round. So that's the incidence of little c. So right now, that's really like 0.3%, right? So right now there's no one on the island who actually has cystic fibrosis. But let's assume, and this is your answer, right? Q squared is 0.003. That's what we're actually looking for right here. But just to sort of give you the idea of what this means, let's say someone came back a long, long time from now and there are actually 1,000 people. How many people would have cystic fibrosis? So it's going to be 0.003 times 1,000 people. That means there are going to be 3 people with little c with cystic fibrosis. Make sense? You just don't see it now because there's so few people. Okay, next question. Let's do it right on here. Another question about cystic fibrosis. Fairly common inherited disorder. Okay, so it affects 1 out of 2,500 babies in the United States. Calculate the following. A, the frequency of the recessive allele in the population. So the recessive allele, that's just Q on its own. So I'm going to say Q squared equals the incidence of somebody who actually has the full recessive condition, little c. It's 1 out of 2,500, right? So 1 divided by 2,500 is going to equal 0.0004. And then if I want to find Q, that's the square root of both of them, right? So the square root of that is 0.02. So the frequency of the recessive allele in the population, that was the first question, is 0.02. And then it says B, the frequency of the dominant allele, so that's P. So that's going to be 1 minus that, right? So it's going to be 0.98. That's question B. And notice we're just looking at alleles, so that's just P's and Q's, not P squareds or Q squareds. C asks for the percentage of heterozygous individuals. That's going to be 2PQ. So it's going to be 2 times 0.98 times 0.02, because that's P and that's Q. So 0.02 times 0.98 times 2. So that's going to be 0.039. So that's really 3.9%, right? So that's my, percentage would be this. So this is part C. 3.9% of people in the United States are carriers.